What's up, everybody? GhostGamer here, doing a little uh, gamer tip tutorial type deal. I don't know what the hell you want to call it. This is just to shed a little light on DXTory, because I find that it works a hell of a lot better than Fraps. I have a little bit more control, I have a little bit more settings to play with, but either way, if you're having some issues with DXTory, hopefully this can help you out. I'll just give you a general run through and some of the settings that have worked fairly well. Stuff that I've seen out there and about and that I've tweaked from there on, and things of that nature. Basically what you have is DXTory right here, right in front of me. You have your overlay setting, which I really don't use it. I probably should, and I should probably set it up just to verify that I am recording video on the computer instead of kind of just chucking it to the wind and hoping and praying. But you can set up your video frame rate, your write file frame rate, recording status, the colors. Have that turned on. You can also place your frames per second in different locations. Next tab you have is your folder settings. Now, whenever you open this up, I'm going to make a suggestion right off the bat. If you have multiple hard drives, which I obviously do yourself a favor and do not write your DXTory information to your hard drive that is processing Windows. It will work just a little bit better if you are writing all your video information from DXTory to a separate hard drive that, you know, the video game and Windows isn't on. Some of you guys I know most likely run the install for the video game on your C drive. I know a couple guys, myself included for certain things, actually do the install directory to another hard drive. Whatever. Just try not to record to the same hard drive if you can. If you can't, then you're kind of stuck with it. But what you're going to do is the first button here, you have add folder. You'd click on add folder, and then you have this little, I don't even know what the hell to call it. You have this little block or bar or whatever with information. This will not say anything right here. It'll just have this little speedometer, or it looks like a gauge of some sort. Kind of reminds me of a speedometer. You have a check mark, browse folder, and then you'll have your actual file path. Whenever you go through and make any changes, I would suggest updating this, but to each their own. I don't know if you have to or not. I just do. Whenever you add a folder, go ahead and click the little gauge looking deal, which is your benchmark. All this is going to do is benchmark your hard drive of how fast it can write to the hard drive in megabytes per second. Obviously, the higher the number, the better. And I am actually probably not going to get a very good score out of it this time, since I'm doing multiple things and I have video recording, obviously, of the screen. So just with that, I went from 107 megabytes down to 82. But you hit OK. You can go over to your next tab, which is your hotkeys. You can have this set up however you want. I just left it at the default. I don't do screenshots, so I don't worry about F11, but I just have my movie capture set up for F12, which is the default that it came with. I don't run a push to talk, which is essentially you can hold down a key whenever you want to record voiceover. I don't do that. I could care less. You have other options down here, and they're kind of self-explanatory. The meat and potatoes of this whole video, if you will, is how to get decent quality without consuming a god-awful amount of gigabytes on your hard drive. Whenever you get it, you'll actually see it at a... let's see, can I make this bigger? Not really. I mean, I can, but not in the way I want. When you get it default, codec will be DXTory video codec, which is a really good codec itself as far as quality is concerned. However, the downside is going to be with size, hard drive consumption. To give you an idea, when I first used this, before I started going through and tweaking and playing with different settings, I recorded a 1 hour playthrough video, and I think it was either an hour or an hour and 20 minutes. Either way, by the time it was done, it was 248 gigabytes in file size. So they are very, very huge videos. And one of the things that we're always looking for is how do we trade off the quality for the file size. And one of the things that I've actually come across that does it fairly well is this Logarith lossless codec, which you can essentially set up any codec you want. All you have to do is install the codec to the computer, and it'll be available in this drop-down menu. I would stay away from some of the GPU-based H.264 codecs. They do not do a very good job. At least I haven't found one that has yet. So with that being said, try and stay away from them. If somebody has had better luck that gets a really good file size, that writes really quick, doesn't lag out the video game, and doesn't take up a whole lot of space, please, by all means, leave me a comment. I want to check it out. But as of right now, I haven't found anything that's, that runs off of CUDA and the GPU that does a very good job. After you pick your codec, in this case, the Logarith lossless codec, you're going to want to click this, looks like a paintbrush or a pen, or I think it's actually a pen, but that's your configuration settings. What you're going to want to do is there's two things you're going to want to change in here. By default, this is how it looks. Your mode is set to RGB default, and none of these checkboxes have been checked off. If you're not using a computer that is archaic, first thing you're going to want to do is use multi-threading. For those of you that don't know what a multi-thread is, depending on if you're running AMD or Intel, it kind of varies a little bit. For the sake of argument, I'll try and explain this as fast as I can without consuming too much time and making it too confusing, but essentially with AMD, if you have 6 cores, you have 6 threads that you could use. Likewise, if you have 8 cores, you also have 8 threads that you could use. By default, if this is unchecked, it's only going to be using 1 thread, or with an AMD processor, 1 core for recording and compressing and all that good stuff. I use multi-threading, so it'll use more than 1 core or more than 1 thread. If you are running an Intel chip that has hyper-threading on it, it's a little bit different, but kind of the same concept. You can have 4 cores, an Intel i5 or an i3 or an i7 that only has 4 physical cores on it. But with the use of hyper-threading, if you actually go in and do a task manager and go to performance, you will only see, if you open your task manager and look up the performance tab, even though you only have 4 physical cores, with hyper-threading you will actually have 8 different threads running. I unfortunately decided to go an AMD processor because I was trying to save a little bit of money. I should have just sucked it up and went and dropped a decent amount of money on the Intel Xeon that I was looking at, but we live and we learn. The other setting that you're going to want to change is the mode. The one thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I've actually got some good results out of it, is changing it to YV12, or phonetically that would be Yankee Victor 1-2. That is your color mode. In my opinion, it looks good. I don't know if it's better to use, or if it's quicker to use, or what have you. But for the sake of argument there, I've heard many people praise the YV12, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Why not? It's not going to hurt. On top of that, you have your frame rate over here on the right hand side of the window. Try and leave this at either 29.97 or 30 frames a second, unless you're getting into like video montages where you want to play with the video speed, make it slow motion video or something like that. Then you can think about recording 60 frames a second. But if you're uploading anything to YouTube, which if you're watching this video, chances are you most likely are, leave it at 29.97 or 30 frames a second. As of right now, to my knowledge, you can't upload any video to YouTube that is higher than 30 frames a second. And if you try and upload a 60 or I think 60, oh yeah, there is 120. If you try and upload 60 or 120 frames to YouTube, it's just going to wreak havoc with your video. So like I said, unless you're doing like a montage or kind of a special video where you're wanting to slow down motion, leave that on 30 frames a second. Working down here, as far as file format goes, I would just leave it at AVI. I do not know what raw cap is. I'm assuming it's raw capture, but I don't know what file format it's going to try and stick it into, and I don't want to find out the hard way. So, with that being said, moving down, I'm going to skip over the synchronized video FPS and include overlay and include mouse cursor and whatnot because I don't use it. Leave your align clip size and margin all alone. We're going to focus on scaling. Make sure that if you click on percent, it's scaled at 100%. That is what it's going to essentially try and scale your video at, as far as physical size. How would I put that? If you were looking at it like a sheet of paper, 100% would be a full sheet, 50% would be a half a sheet. And that sheet of paper is kind of what the hell is the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like a metaphor for your video screen. I don't know what the hell the word is that I'm looking for, but hopefully somebody understood that poor analogy that I was going after. Finally, on this tab, you're going to click on size. Now, my setup right here is at 1080p. However, all my videos that I kick out to YouTube are only 720, mainly because of a couple of different reasons. One, YouTube messes with my videos just a little bit when it gets uploaded at 1080. Not to mention, unless you have a really good ISP or Google Fiber is in your area, I really wouldn't be trying to watch stuff in 1080. That's just my personal opinion. 720 does a damn good job, so I have it set up in here at a resolution of 1280 by 720. This is more resolution than actual size of the video, letterbox size, if you will. Back to that sheet of paper type example that I just gave you. Any of you Photoshop users that are kind of still lost about what I'm trying to say, we'll put it into the instance of percent as your actual size of your workspace. Size is the DPI, or the resolution. So as far as I'm concerned, I kick out everything at 720. 720 is good for me. I'm going to try and keep that file size a little bit smaller by recording it at 720 instead of boosting it all the way up to 1080 and then having to go back and take that 1080 and try and reduce it to 720. After that, next tab is your audio settings. Now, whenever you first open up DXTory, before you change anything, the only thing that will show up is this number 1, audio stream number 1. This should automatically default to your speakers or your line out. If you have it running to like a stereo system or headphones, depending on how your audio card or your onboard audio is set up. If you want to try and do over or voice over commentary, click on this little plus symbol. That'll give you an audio input number 2. And for this instance, I have just my Blue Snowball hooked up You can use whatever kind of microphone, whether it's a USB microphone or a phono microphone, or even if you're extremely high speed, low drag, if you have like a UX1 or a UX2 and you are using an XLR microphone, whatever floats your fancy and floats your boat. Both your audio settings, I just leave the codec as PCM. I really don't care. That's fine by me. 44,100 hertz, 16-bit audio for both of them. I don't record anything at 48,000 or 96,000 hertz or 96 kilohertz, 48 kilohertz. 44.1 kilohertz is perfectly fine. I'm not trying to do anything in a studio format. I'm not a musical artist or anything like that. It's going up to YouTube. It's for what it is. 44.1 kilohertz, 16-bit stereo, perfectly fine. I'm going to skip the screenshot because, let's face it, not very many people out there do screenshots anymore. That kind of went the way of the dodo bird. But you have a couple different settings that you could play with in here. It's kind of self-explanatory. Some of the same principles come across from the video section. And lastly but not least, you have the advanced tab. There's only one thing in here that we're going to change whenever you set this, or whenever you first open this up. You'll see where it says processing threads down here towards the bottom. It defaults to 1. And just like I brought up earlier in this video with the multi-threading, you're going to want to change that to whatever you have running. So say for the sake of argument, you have 2 threads, 2 cores, pick a 2. If you have a quad core, pick 4. If you have a quad core with hyper-threading or a octa-core, pick 8. Sadly, I don't know if you can... I honestly don't know if you can get anything over 8. I don't know if the 16-core processors will actually show up in here or not. But now you're talking very heavy-end server processors, and they're still kind of a lot of money even for AMD chips. But aside from that, that's about all. If you go into your global settings, you only have really 2 or 3 settings: show task tray and hide taskbar button when minimized. Other than that, that's really the only settings that you need to knock out. If you guys got any questions, feel free to drop me a message down in the comment bar. And best of luck to your recording endeavors.